Happy Wednesday, everybody. Jim here with a late look at Horizon Forbidden West. I did a collector edition unboxing video right when the game came out. Incredibly excited for it. Open it up. Loved the box art. Loved the statue. Loved everything about it. Installed the game, and then Elden Ring came out. That's the truth. And I think, like many of you, I just fell in love with Elden Ring and just invested so much time and passion and energy into the game. And I still haven't beaten Elden Ring. But I kind of neglected Horizon Forbidden West until this weekend. I spent all day yesterday, Easter Sunday, with my wife playing Horizon Forbidden West. I think we played about 12 hours. It may have been longer if I really figured out the math behind it. We took some lunch, took some food breaks, bathroom breaks, all that kind of stuff. But pretty much all we did on Sunday was play Horizon Forbidden West. And I wanted to give some impressions on this because that's kind of what I do on my channel. This is by no means, obviously, my definitive final thoughts. And at some point in the future, I will come back and I will do a final spoiler video. But this is going to be spoiler free, just my impressions of the first 13 or so hours of my experience with the game. And I'll say this. If you liked Horizon Zero Dawn, you're going to absolutely love Forbidden West. If you were kind of lukewarm on the first game, I think the second one adds a lot more fun things to do and does change the formula somewhat, but the core experience is largely the same. I liked Horizon Zero Dawn, so obviously I knew I would enjoy this game, and I have. But I just want to throw out that caveat before I get too into some of my notes here. The story, just like the first game, is told in two parts. You have the one part that is the falling of the old world with the remnants of pieces of technology that still exist in the world. The other part of the story is the current state of politics in the existing new world, all the colonies and religions and creeds that have risen up following the fall of the old world. And you're going to be playing both of them back and forth as you kind of navigate through the story with Aloy. And I didn't really care so much, honestly, for the politics of the current stuff. I was more interested in what happened and what was going on and what was Zero Dawn and that sort of thing. That was more interesting to me. But unfortunately, you're going to get both, maybe one or more. Just I wanted to throw that out there, but it does push the narrative both pretty extensively very early on. This is a very hairy. It's a very hairy game. It is actually a hairy game. I'm going to talk about Aloy's hair in a moment. It's a very heavy game with lots of dialogue. There are fully fleshed out characters and motives and discussions, and cutscenes and talking can take a long time. It's got an amazing voice cast, though. Everybody, 100% fully voiced. Even all of the townsfolk and the ancillary, boring, goofy side missions you may stumble across. And the world feels alive. When you go to one of the first settlements, there's this giant bar. And when you walk inside, you'll hear conversations of other characters talking. And it really feels like you're part of a world. Phenomenal world building. Special credit, obviously, to Ashley Birch, who plays Aloy. She does a phenomenal job with the voice acting that I've seen so far, or heard so far. I'm really enjoying it. But there are a lot of dialogue options. You're going to be able to talk a lot and get lots of extra information if you want it. You could also cut right to the chase. And maybe some people don't care about that world building as much, but I take this as kind of like this epic ballad of, Aloy trying to fix the world. So I like absorbing all this stuff. You may not, and if you don't, that's okay. You can bypass that and get the gist of what you need just to kind of move on with it. Because when you're not talking, that's when you're going to really be playing the game, doing lots of exploring, lots of fighting. I want to talk about exploring first. Exploring is fun. And just like in the first game, there are a lot of things to see and do in the world. Climbing and platforming, though, still feels off. I can't tell you the number of times I died, or I missed jumps, or I had a hard time navigating Aloy from one platform to another. Doesn't really feel like they have quite mastered how she snaps to something. It's definitely not as fluid is a game like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or any of the more modern Assassin's Creed titles. And that's unfortunate because sometimes you don't really know what you're supposed to do because you can't really tell if you're supposed to jump onto something. Now, she does have her focus vision where she can kind of look at everything. And if you remember, Guerrilla Games and Hideo Kojima's new studio worked very, very closely together when they were making Death Stranding. If you remember Death Stranding's topography system where you could scan and see the ridges and the altitudes of everything, that system is pulled exactly into this system. So when you scan a wall, you're going to get a surface of the wall and see all these lines and X's and where you can jump and not jump. That helps a lot when you're doing vertical traversal. But when you're trying to jump from platform to platform, particularly in some of these old structures that have pieces of wood and broken rock faces to navigate around, it is sometimes like, since the scan doesn't work for that, you don't really know where to go. So keep that in mind. Sometimes it does feel a little wonky. I mean, I always ultimately got to where I needed to get to, but sometimes I feel like it took a little longer than it should have. Additionally, for some weird reason, there's no dedicated jump button when you're on a mount. So if you are not basically taking the mount and going on totally flat or paved surfaces, it is a trial to get your animal to do what you want them to do, to go up and down over very, very small hills, which is agitating. Thankfully, I feel like the development studio spent a lot of time on Aloy, which obviously they should have. Her transitional animations are insane. The way you run, jump, climb, roll, how she puts her hands out to brace falls, how she touches off against the wall when she's leaping. Sometimes when she like parkours over something where she'll kind of like lay her hands and like sweep her legs around or do a roll. It's so seamless and beautiful. You probably won't even realize it's happening, but it really, really sells that she's a very nimble fighter. And I like that a lot. So you're going to get a lot of that too. When you are not fighting the system, you're going to be exploring though. All areas of interest, just like before on the map, are marked with a question mark. Very easy to get to places you need to get to. There are other areas of interest that aren't marked on the map. Those I found to be the most interesting. That's where you'll find really rare materials or points of lore, ancillary side quests, and a lot of times too, and I don't know if this is a trend throughout the game, but definitely at least in the starting zone, you're going to basically, the world's going to open up slightly and there's a very clear funnel point, and then the world opens up past the funnel point. All the thing I'm talking about is in that first area before you get to this town called Chain Scrape. But in that area, I was finding stuff that I didn't know what its worth was until later on. I found, for example, I was finding these lenses up in these tall towers, and I had no idea what they were for. Obviously, I found out later, and then it made a little more sense. But I feel like sometimes in this game, it almost, I don't want to say punishes you for exploring, because I never felt that way, but I never got that satisfaction of, oh, I went to the top of the mountain and I found a cool weapon, or I found a cool gadget or gizmo that I could use right now. A lot of times it was like, cool, you found one of 10 things. You don't know who they are for or where they go. You just know you have one of them. And it doesn't wait until later on that you finally get the mission or the completion for doing it. So keep that in mind. I almost feel like the game was designed to play through the golden path, essentially, and then to loop back. That's not how I play. I basically do this up and down the map, very covering the map very, very methodically. So for me, this playstyle sometimes doesn't always align with my preferences. Just keep that in mind. But the exploration, like I said, ultimately is fun. But the fighting is really where it kicks in to me. And the fighting in this game is really bar none. It is some of the best, most fluid, most engaging, tense fight sequences really I've ever played in any game. You have a litany of weapons. I mean, almost too many weapons. So like I said, about 13 hours in, I think I have 15 or 16 different weapons now that I can use. Now, some of them are duplicative of each other. You have an arrow, and then you have a fire arrow, or an acid arrow, or, like, that's kind of dumb. But you have other things like javelins and bolt casters and large, heavy bows that take a long time to draw, more like sniper, do like a significant amount of damage. You have little up-close rapid-fire bows. You obviously have your trusty spear. And you're going to find that there's a lot of weapons to choose from and upgrade. Now, if you're playing like me and you're scavenging the world and collecting every trinket and killing every enemy, you're never going to have a problem with upgrading pretty much right away. But if you're not playing that way, you may want to hold off on upgrades for a while until you get to a vendor to kind of see what's available. There's a weapon wheel, basically, that lets you select one of 6 slots. You could put any weapon in any slot, which is awesome. Plenty of customization there. You also have distinct armor sets that have different bonuses. You have the same core upgrade system from the first one where you can put trinkets in that increase fire damage or give you more health regeneration when you're low on HP, or you're more immune to physical attacks or something like that. Those exist as well, and they've also added a very, very heavy and complex skill tree system that includes this new thing called a Valor Surge, which is awesome. Basically, as you fight, you're going to build up your special meter, think Destiny, where you're going to basically start to become more powerful. And at some point in combat, you can activate this. Aloy puts this really cool face paint on her face, and something cool happens. There's a couple different selections you can. I think there's 6 different skill trees, 6 or 7. So you can pick one Valor thing from any of those. I'm playing as the Hunter. What it does for me is it makes my arrows hit harder, hit faster, and I actually get health regeneration on each shot, which is really, really cool. That is just such a fun moment when you get to basically like pop your ult and just go ham on some of these insanely difficult robotic monsters. Additionally, there are other skill-based abilities based off this stamina system. And you're going to find tons of new moves and passive abilities that will make you more robust of a fighter, whether you prefer to be more stealthy or more trap-based or more ranged artillery or somewhere in between. There is a skill tree and a skill for you. So you're going to be able to find something that works for you, which I absolutely adore. There's tons of passive abilities as well, and you're constantly getting stat points. As you complete missions and just major story beats, you're just going to level up. So that's great. So you're always getting new stuff. There's always something new to check on the skill tree. Every point doesn't always feel meaningful, but when you get into some of those bigger skills and you unlock some new abilities, the game does take on a very different feel than it did before, and I really like that. And you're always getting more deadly. That's the important thing. You're definitely going back, even just in the 13 hours I've played, to like the starting area. Some of the enemies that I struggled with, I'm now one-shotting. I'm blowing parts off of them as I need to upgrade my character or upgrade different things like that, and it's cool. So it's great. And I love the combat system. I cannot say enough good things about it. Through and through, this is a great PlayStation Studios experience. When you think of PlayStation Studios, what does that what image does that convey to you? It's got excellent audio. Some of the best audio I have ever heard. Not just in terms of voice acting and quality, but the way Aloy's footsteps sound different on hills going uphill than downhill. The way that pavement sounds, the way that water rushing sounds, the thwip of your bow, different parts of the robot you hit, their metallic screeches and cries as parts of them blow off. It's really, really, really impressive. 3D audio also really, really good here too. I've mostly been playing with my wife, like I said, so I was using my sound bar, but I did go back later and play with my headphones with my my Shit Hell 2, and wow, I mean, masterclass in audio design. It's so immersive. It's some of the best I've ever heard. I would say it rivals the Demon's Souls remake in terms of some of the best audio that I've honestly ever heard. It's got great haptic feedback. So, of course, PlayStation Studios game, they're going to use their gadgets. They use the DualSense controller masterclass. The vibration that you get, which is gentle walking, climbing on things, drawing a bow back further, getting hitting, all have distinct feels to them. When you're crouching in a forest and a monster walks by and you're hearing the and you're feeling it in your hands, incredibly immersive. I've said this so many times in all of my other videos. I'm going to say it again here. PlayStation's haptic feedback is bar none, and I think it is the single best feature of the PlayStation 5 is the ability to utilize the DualSense controller. The way it takes experiences from the TV and literally puts them in your hands is awesome. As I mentioned, the graphics, of course, world class. I'm playing on the 60 frame per second mode. There is a 30 frame per second, which gives you a little bit higher fidelity. I like the silky smooth 60 frame per second. I have not seen any pop-ins. I have not seen any issues with any of that, and it runs phenomenally well. Based on my play style of rolling around and shooting arrows like a banshee, I like the 60 frame per second mode. You may prefer a more cinematic experience depending on how you play, if you're a little stealthier and calmer. I run into combat, I'm just shooting like a madman. But everybody plays differently. But I think you're gonna, between one of those two modes, you're gonna find something you like. The music is beautiful, the background music, everything. I know I'm using these words often because I mean it. I looked at the review before I posted, as I was getting my notes together for this. It sits at an 88 on Metacritic, which I feel is about a good score. Maybe slightly lower. I definitely could see them losing some points for some of the traversal issues. I would definitely say some of the pacing of the game, you may feel like, oh my God, they're talking to me for 20 minutes and they're saying the exact same thing over and over and over and just like, enough already. I understand that. But man, oh man, what a masterclass of a game. You absolutely owe it to yourself to check out this game. If you haven't played either game, by the way, you absolutely need to start with Horizon Zero Dawn. For a lot of narrative reasons and gameplay reasons. This is definitely a sequel. You really need to play the first to understand what's going on. There are a lot of callbacks to old characters and themes and gameplay and everything like that, and it really builds off of it in a very organic and meaningful way. But what a showcase game for PlayStation 5. I love it, I love it, I love it, and I think you will too. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the game below. Have you checked it out yet, or are you still like me before Sunday, before Easter Sunday, and you're still stuck in Elden Ring or some of the other great games coming out? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.